your host, CharlesGruver. And I'll say, as I've gotten into this season of, for this year, working with on the different hymn writers and hymns, I'm actually now starting to find, well, as you've probably seen with some of the earlier ones also, find, and even now I'm finding it harder to find information on the stories about either the hymn writer or the hymn or both, really. And it also kind of has me praying about some changes I might make to the God at Work podcast for the 2020 season. I might start to implement it towards the end of this season, which would be kind of bringing back the Bible study episodes and basically just focusing each month having 2 episodes, one being the story slash interview type episode and the other one being more Bible study focused. But as I said, I'm kind of praying about that, and if I start it up with this season, it would probably end up being just to finish out the season with a couple Bible study episodes to kind of work into doing the alternating starting 2020. And the reason why I kind of bring this up is definitely for the next 2 episodes, it's looking like I will be combining the story or talking about the hymn along with the writer of the hymn, because there isn't much. I think I also kind of did this with Robinson and Come Thou Fount, but it's because there's not much there when you separate the two, or the two are so closely entwined that even the shorter length episodes I've been having lately, there wouldn't be enough to make even like a 10 to 15 minute episode. And so basically today, the hymn and writer I'll be looking at is pretty much the tragic story of Horatio Spafford, which many of us, if you've been to church, a lot of times before they go into the hymn, sometimes they'll actually go into the story behind this hymn, It Is Well With My Soul, kind of giving like brief overview of the story. But Horatio Spafford was born on October 20th, 1828, to gazetteer author Horatio Gates Spafford and Elizabeth Clark Hewitt Spafford. On September 5th, 1861, he married Anna Larson, who was a Norwegian, and he married her in Chicago, Illinois. He was a prominent American lawyer, actually being a senior partner in a law firm, as well as being a Presbyterian church elder. The Spaffords were supporters and friends of Dwight L. Moody, which kind of comes into play later on when we get to more of the tragedy in his life. In the spring of 1871, Spafford had invested in quite a bit of real estate north of Chicago, actually putting quite a bit of his finances into it. Anyone familiar with history, though, also knows that in October of 1871 was the Great Fire of Chicago, which happened to destroy most of Spafford's real estate investments. It was also in 1871 that Spafford's 4-year-old son died of scarlet fever. And it's here where we kind of get into the tale that most people are familiar with in regards to Horatio Spafford, uh, where 2 years later, in 1873, because of business demands, mostly dealing with zoning issues due to problems that arose from the Chicago fire, Spafford was unable to join his wife and 4 daughters on a family vacation to England, where they were going to see their friend D.L. Moody preach while they were over there. Uh, it was on November 22nd of 1873, while crossing the Atlantic, and I'm probably going to butcher the names of both ships, but the steamship Ville du Havre, or Havre, was struck by an iron sailing vessel named the Loch Earn, which resulted in killing 226 people. Among the casualties were all 4 of Spafford's daughters, leaving his wife Anna as the only survivor out of those 5. And when she finally arrived in England, she sent Spafford a telegram that read, "Saved alone." And then it was on Spafford's voyage over to join his wife in England that he wrote the song "It Is Well With My Soul," or at least penned the words to it. The tune that's used with it is actually was written by someone else, and he actually named the tune after the steamship Ville du Havre. Um, Later on, Anna gave birth to 3 more children to uh, Spafford. In 1877, she gave birth to Horatio Goetner. Uh, on March 24th of 1878, she gave birth to Bertha Hedges, and on January 18th of 1881, she gave birth to Grace. Unfortunately, on February 11th of 1880, the younger Horatio Goetner, his son, died of scarlet fever at the age of 3. It was also pretty much right after the ordeal at sea that the Spaffords eventually left their Presbyterian congregation that they were members of and actually started hosting prayer meetings in their home, which the American press started to dub this messianic sect that they kind of created the Overcomers. In August of 1881, the Spaffords went to Jerusalem as a party of 13 adults and 3 children. I'm guessing the 13 adults were composed probably of some of the other Overcomers. The sources that I read where it was talking about this didn't really say who, other than Anna and Horatio, the other 11 adults were. Or one of the 3 children, to set up an American colony in Jerusalem. While they were there, they actually joined up with some Swedish Christians who were engaged in philanthropic work among the people there. The work basically did not look at the religious affiliation of the people that they were helping. Basically, if they were Jew, Christian, Muslim, atheist, and other religious belief, they didn't look at that as, we will help you only if you are this of this group, they helped regardless. Also, they were not doing it out of motives for making converts. Thus, pretty much, this allowed the group to gain the trust of the Muslim, the Jewish, and Christian communities there. Uh, it was also here that Horatio and Anna adopted a teenager named Jacob Elihu, who basically, after being adopted, became known as Jacob Spafford. But also, a story related to him, he was born into a Turkish Jewish family, and if you've ever heard of the Siloam inscription, which is basically a tunnel in Jerusalem that was constructed to feed water to from outside of Jerusalem, bring water outside of Jerusalem into it. Uh, Actually, it is the tunnel probably recorded in 2 Kings 20:20 that Hezekiah had built to bring water into Jerusalem during the siege. Jacob actually is the schoolboy that was swimming in the pool that discovered the Siloam inscription there in Jerusalem. And then finally, on October 16th of 1888, uh, Horatio Spafford died of malaria and was buried in Mount Zion Cemetery there in Jerusalem. Again, as I said, from what you can see, there wasn't really much to get two separate episodes out of this story. Next week will probably be even more noticeable. But so as you can see, Horatio's life, if you look at it, appears to be kind of a, I'd say, modernish day Job, as he was the 19th century. They're at the mid to end 1800s, but he experienced tragedy and kept his faith in God through the trials. And actually, in regards to the song "It Is Well With My Soul," Spafford's daughter Bertha noted later on that the original manuscript contained only 4 verses, which is probably the 4 verses we traditionally sing. There's, cause when I was, and you'll see it in the, if you go to some of the references in the notes, that there's like it's showing like 5 verses. What it shows is verse 4. I know the church I go to, when we sing it, we don't sing that verse, so I'm thinking that's probably the verse that was added in later. None of the references I've seen mention which verse it was that was added later, other than I'm pretty sure that the last verse was probably one of the original 4, because she also noted that the last line of the song was changed from "A song in the night, O my soul," to "Even so, it is well with my soul." Well, again, this is CharlesGruver on Horatio Spafford, A Modernish Day Job, and "It Is Well With My Soul," and that's God at Work. God at Work, Stories of Grace and Faith, is brought to you by Becoming God's Man Ministries, and is written and produced by CharlesGruver. If you have any questions, comments, or stories of how God has worked in your life that you would like to share, you can contact us at stories@godatworkpodcast.com, or by leaving a voicemail or texting 727 315-0830. If you would like to support God at Work or Becoming God's Man Ministries, you can find out how by going to either godatworkpodcast.com or becominggodsman.com. Opening theme is Fine Line and closing theme is Airline, both by Geographer and obtained from the YouTube audio library. And as always, thank you for listening.